Have you ever wondered what the world was like 2,500 years ago? Let's take a journey back in time to 500 BCE, a period historians call the Axial Age. This was an incredible era of transformation, a time when new ideas and empires were simultaneously reshaping civilizations across the globe, from Europe and Asia to Africa and the Americas. It's a story of how our modern world began to take shape, all at once, in different corners of the planet. So, what was daily life like for an ordinary person back then? Well, it depended heavily on where you were born. If you were a farmer in the fertile lands of what would become the Roman Republic, your life revolved around the seasons, tending to your small plot of land. Your world was your village, your family, and the local gods you prayed to for a good harvest. Life was tough, and your political voice was just beginning to find its footing in a newly formed republic. Just across the sea in Greece, things were a little different. If you lived in a bustling city-state like Athens, you might be a craftsman, a sailor, or even a citizen with the right to vote in the world's first democracy. You'd spend your days in the agora, the central marketplace, debating politics, listening to philosophers, and trading goods from across the Mediterranean. Life was vibrant, filled with art, theatre, and a growing sense of civic identity. Now, let's travel east to the mighty Persian Empire. This was the superpower of its day, stretching from modern-day Turkey all the way to India. If you were a subject of the great king, you might be a soldier stationed along the royal road, a merchant trading spices and textiles in a sprawling city like Babylon, or a farmer working on irrigated land. The empire was incredibly diverse, a melting pot of cultures, languages, and religions, all held together by a sophisticated system of governance and a powerful army. Meanwhile, in Asia, China was in the midst of its turbulent warring states period. The old Zhou dynasty had lost its grip, and the land was divided among ambitious warlords, each vying for supremacy. For an ordinary person, this was a time of great uncertainty and constant conflict. You might be a peasant conscripted to build massive defensive walls or fight in endless battles. Yet, it was also a period of intense innovation in military strategy, technology, and, as we'll see, philosophy. Further south, in India, the great river valleys of the Ganges were home to the Mahajanapadas, a group of 16 powerful kingdoms and republics. Cities like Varanasi were flourishing centers of trade and learning. If you lived here, your life was deeply intertwined with the rigid caste system. You might be a Brahmin priest, a Kshatriya warrior, or a Vaishya merchant. This was also the spiritual landscape when new religious ideas were beginning to challenge ancient traditions. What about Africa? South of Egypt, the kingdom of Kush was thriving along the Nile River. With its capital at Meroe, Kush was a major hub for trade, famous for its ironwork and unique script. As a Kushite, you might be a miner digging for gold, an artisan crafting fine pottery, or a priest serving in one of the grand temples dedicated to both Egyptian and local gods. The Kushites were a powerful and independent civilization, a bridge between the Mediterranean world and sub-Saharan Africa. And we can't forget the Americas. While completely isolated from the happenings in the Old World, remarkable cultures were developing here as well. In Mesoamerica, the Olmec civilization was laying the groundwork for future empires. They were building monumental stone heads, developing complex calendars, and creating trade networks that spanned the region. Further south, the early seeds of Maya culture were being sown, with communities beginning to build ceremonial centers that would one day become magnificent cities. Politically, the world of 500 BCE was a mosaic of different systems. The Persian Empire was the dominant force, a centralized monarchy ruled by a king who saw himself as the ruler of the world. In Greece, you had a collection of fiercely independent city-states, with Athens experimenting with direct democracy, a radical idea at the time. Rome was a young republic, governed by elected senators, slowly but surely expanding its influence across the Italian peninsula. As we mentioned, China was a patchwork of warring states, each with its own ruler and court, locked in a struggle for survival and dominance. In India, the Mahajanapadas were a mix of monarchies and oligarchic republics, each with complex political structures and powerful rulers. These diverse political experiments, from massive empires to small city-states, would provide the models for governments for millennia to come. Now, let's talk about something that unites all of humanity: family and lifespan. Across all these cultures, life was fragile. Life expectancy at birth was tragically low, hovering around 30 to 35 years. High infant mortality was a heartbreaking reality for most families. However, this statistic can be a bit misleading. If you survived the perilous years of childhood, your chances of living a much longer life increased significantly. It wasn't uncommon for people to reach their 50s or even 60s, becoming respected elders who passed down knowledge and traditions. Family was the cornerstone of every society. Marriages were typically arranged, and large families were essential for farming, labor, and carrying on the family name. Your identity was deeply tied to your lineage and your community. But what truly makes the Axial Age so remarkable, so pivotal, is the incredible explosion of philosophical and religious thought that occurred simultaneously across the world. It is as if humanity collectively woke up and started asking the big questions. What is our purpose? How should we live? What is a just society? In Greece, this was the time of Socrates, who would soon wander the streets of Athens, questioning everything and everyone, laying the foundations of Western philosophy. In China, Confucius was traveling from state to state, teaching a moral code based on respect, duty, and social harmony that would shape Chinese culture for over 2,000 years. In India, a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama achieved enlightenment and became the Buddha, offering a path to end suffering that would spread across Asia and the world. And in Persia, the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster were gaining prominence, introducing concepts of a cosmic struggle between good and evil, a single universal God, and the idea of a final judgment, ideas that would profoundly influence Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Think about that for a moment. In a world without internet, without airplanes, without any way for these thinkers to know of each other's existence, similar questions were being asked, and revolutionary answers were being found. These parallel developments in Greece, China, India, and Persia created the ethical and spiritual frameworks that still guide billions of people today. So, the world of 500 BCE was a place of stark contrasts and incredible parallels. It was an age of empires and city-states, of brutal warfare and profound spiritual awakening. From the democratic assemblies of Athens to the courts of Chinese warlords, from the meditating Buddha under the Bodhi tree to the scribes of the Kushite kingdom, humanity was on the move. The ideas born in this era about democracy, justice, morality, and the nature of existence would ripple through the centuries, shaping the civilizations that followed and, ultimately, the world we all inhabit today. It was a global turning point, the moment our shared human story truly began to be written. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of the Axial Age, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time.